a lot of times people, when they do these season previews, they look at, the overarching storylines with the team. One of the biggest ones for Michigan this year is all the guys they lost to the NFL draft this past year. 13 guys selected. It was a program record, but, I think in terms of maybe what's not being talked about as much is the talent that they have coming back, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I just checked. You guys at PFF have, I believe it's 7 Michigan guys in the big board you currently have for 2025. 2 of those guys are in the top 4. You have 3 of them in the top 16. Kenneth Grant is kind of just outside, the top 32 or so at 36. So maybe not quite as deep a class that they had last year, but certainly looks like a lot more top heavy. I guess your early thoughts on the type of talent that this 2024 Michigan team could send to the NFL next year.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of work on the draft yet. I've watched a little bit though, and I mentioned Mason Graham earlier. PFF grades are through the roof for him. I think the question for him is going to be measurables and size. I don't know if you guys have his arm length handy, but they look small, and I don't think the NFL is going to love that. Kenneth Grant does look like an absolute monster though, who could push the pocket. So I love the 2 defensive tackles there. The one interesting thing is that, they've got some talent on the edge as well, guys like Josiah Stewart. The one other thing to mention about Wink's defenses is he hasn't really had a whole lot of pure pass rushers over the last few years, whether it was Baltimore or the Giants. And one thing I'm curious about is is he blitzing as heavily as he is because of the talent, or is that just the scheme, right? I don't need that guy to win off the edge because there's not a lot of pure 4-man rush. So you might actually be able to rush 4 a lot more because of the depth on Michigan's defensive line. Will Johnson, of course, is going to get a ton of publicity, I think, this year and for the draft. So, look, I think they've got a lot of good talent coming back. I think for me, the biggest question mark is all the turnover on the offensive line, even if they're highly touted guys, just having the turnover, having that inexperience compared to what they've had. And the mark of last year's Michigan team to me was not necessarily superstars, but the depth. It was very much like the Ravens. When you look at the Ravens depth chart, it's just blue and green grades for PFF. Blue and green consistency across the board. That was Michigan's defense, right? The Mike Sanderstills of the world, the Chris Jenkins of the world. Those guys were just really good, and there was a lot of good players that got sent to the NFL. So to me, it's more about the depth. It does seem like there's more star power, maybe relative to last year, having some of these guys a year older. So it looks like there's plenty of talent left there. Just a matter of will they overcome some of the depth that got lost to the NFL?